Welcome back to the Tools section of Adobe Animate CC, and we're going to cover both the selection tools in far more detail and the content modifying tools, as well as the navigation, color, and some of the extra properties we'll go over again, just as a refresher. But going back to these tools, I want to start by selecting like my pen tool, because the pen tool I've already shown you earlier, but I want to go ahead and just, demonstrate it one more time because it is useful to know. Using the pen tool really gives an all-around feature selection of what these tools do. The only tool we won't be discussing is the 3D rotation tool, because wrapping your head from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions, it can be rather confusing for some people. And since we're learning 2D animation, we're just going to stick with 2D animation for now. So going back to my selection tools, I can select separate parts of my line, and let's just say I want to delete these. Now I've got this one section using the selection tool deleted, and using that same selection tool, let's say I wanted to go ahead and go to this corner here of the end of the line here, and you'll notice I get that little right angle directly underneath the pointer. I can go ahead and drag that out and then just connect it over here, and now I've got my line that I just created, and I can sort of curve these lines around and get some different bends and so on and so forth just using my selection tool. Now using the sub-selection tool, clicking on this line, you'll notice it has it broken down into various points. And when I was discussing vector art before, you'll notice these white squares. These white squares are it's basically point A and point B, and it calculates, give or take, like the distance formula along with sort of this Bezier that it creates, this round curve, to keep this very fresh and crisp work here. Now, in a later video, I'll show you the difference in fine detail between vector art and pixel art. For now, let's continue pushing through these tools, and with this particular sub-selection tool, I can click on any one of these dots and sort of rotate around, and you'll notice it adjusts it from these points. And this one has a little blue line here. I'm going to rotate that one around, and I can shift these points around, and I can do a lot of things with the sub-selection tool. Now, the free transform tool is a different tool all in itself. It works similar to the selection tool, or the sub-selection tool, but with the free transform tool, you have a whole bunch of extra tools that you have available to you when you select something. So I've just highlighted this entire object or shape or whatever, and you'll notice I have 3 boxes along the top, 3 boxes along the bottom, these little square boxes, and then one on each side, along with a white dot in the center. The white dot in the center is the transform pivot point, or anchor point, if you will. So if I were to, let's say, hover around the corner, this only works when you hover around the corner. You notice you get that little rotation tool. I'll go ahead and rotate this around, and you'll notice it rotates from this point here. Now if I wanted to scale out, I can scale out. I can Control Z and undo, and I can, let's just say I accidentally did that and I wanted to keep the same constraint of the shape, just I wanted to scale it larger. I can hold Shift and it will scale at the same constraint, only larger. Now let's just say I wanted to bring it smaller. Same thing. Hold Shift, it'll scale smaller, and hold that same constraint. And you can really do a lot of cool stuff with this. And that's how you go ahead and modify the rotation, the size, the scale, so on and so forth. So that can also, some of the things can also be adjusted here, just if you have this selected from your transform tab here. And you can go ahead and run some rotations. You can even skew, so you can skew some things. And yeah. That's kind of the similar, but a little bit slightly different with these, with this information in here. All right, so going back to here, we're going to skip over the 3D rotation tool. As you saw, it didn't even have that function available in here. So we're not even going to bother messing with it. And then we have our Lasso tool, our Polygon tool, or our Magic Wand tool. So the Lasso tool allows me to just sort of select around, and it will select just those in that selection. If I fill in this shape real quick, I'm going to go ahead and show you. It might be a little bit easier to show you with the entire thing sort of filled in. I'm going to run some strange pattern here on the inside, and you're going to notice when I go ahead, it does that strange pattern selection, and let's just say I want to delete it. So you'll see that this selects very specific regions on how you move your pointer around. Again, with the Polygon tool, I'm going to go ahead and click. It just acts as if it's like a polygon, and I'm going to click around, and then once I reach this point, I'm going to double click, and it'll select that polygonal shape that you've created. And the Magic Wand tool doesn't seem to be working, but it should basically select a range of colors. For whatever reason, not working at the moment. But this should give you more than enough freedom to make any type of selection you want. And if I just wanted to select this blue color using, let's just say, the selection tool, I can click here, delete it. And then the other cool feature about having the outline of this done with the pen tool, and if it were done in the pencil tool, same exact rules apply to this. If I hover out and I just kind of stretch these lines out using those tools I was showing you earlier, it even brings out the fill color as well, which is a really great feature, especially in the vector art. So it's able to calculate that line so well that it can just fill it in as you go ahead and push forward and work through your project. As far as the content modifiers, I'm going to go ahead and show you what these do. Really, really basic stuff. So let's just say we're going to skip over the bone tool because this is specifically for animation, and we're not going to animate anything using the bone tool just yet. We will, just not yet. I'm going to go ahead and start with my paint bucket tool, keyboard shortcut K, and if I go here to my fill color, because that's the color that my paint bucket tool is controlled from, I'm going to go ahead and just like select green, fill this in, and you'll notice it changes to green or yellow, or whatever color I select, gray. And that is what the fill bucket tool does. Now let's go ahead and take a ink bottle, for example. The ink bottle tool is sort of a spin-off of what the eyedropper tool is. Some of you may have seen the eyedropper tool, so maybe I should explain this one first. The eyedropper tool will select color. So let's just say I want to use my eyedropper tool, and I'm going to select this black. Now keep your eye right here on the fill color. And that didn't work. I must have grabbed it from a wrong section. And it's not selecting. It's only selecting the fill color. So let me do this one more time. Let me go ahead and select this gray. And you'll notice it just changes to gray. I must have not been getting a good angle on it. But the eyedropper tool does not necessarily work well with lines such as the stroke color. And you'll notice as I zoomed in, it actually switched to the ink bottle tool, which is the tool I wanted to get to. So if I go ahead and I select this, and because I'm zoomed in, it becomes this little white box or clear box, and it switches to the ink bottle tool. Now the ink bottle tool only works with the stroke color, whereas the eyedropper only works with the fill color. So they're basically, the pencil tool only works with the ink bottle or the pen tool, or line tool for that matter, that vector-based line work, whereas the brush tool doesn't follow those same rules. As I selected, it's not broken down into that information. So that is the difference between the eyedropper and ink bottle tool, as well as your basic pencil tool and brush tool. So for the when you're just beginning, I want you to really try and stick with the brush tool, because you can run into a lot of issues when you kind of forget to close objects and you're sitting there clicking a million times trying to fill in a color, and then you kind of forget why, and it's because you didn't actually close the object and you forgot that you can actually change the size here of the gap fill in, so on and so forth. But these sort of work coincide with each other. The pencil tool with the ink bottle tool, and the brush tool with the eyedropper tool. Tongue twister there. So going ahead and showing you the rest of these content creation or content modifiers is I have my eraser tool, and I'm going to just start erasing. And it's going to do exactly what it does. It erases stuff. So now you'll see when I erase something right here, this had just turned into a whole bunch of different lines. So these lines have now just been sort of broken apart, even though it still has this rounded edge. And if you remember, these lines are no longer connected, even though it looks like it is, and you have to go ahead and manually connect them again. So one other thing, if I just click here and just delete this pink color, I'll have whatever's remaining from that strange erasing that I just did there. So that's that. Zooming in and zooming out, I can zoom in and zoom out over here. I can also zoom in and zoom out using Control plus and minus, as well as using this little magnifying tool here, the zoom tool. I can go ahead and run a click and drag directly over my shape, and you'll see that I can zoom in here. Let's just say I click and drag here, and I can zoom in at any point I want on this shape. So that covers my zoom tool. The hand tool here, this will allow me to just click and drag around. The keyboard shortcut on Windows for this is spacebar, so if you ever see me just kind of quickly do that, I'm just holding spacebar. I don't believe it works the same on a Macintosh. The Macintosh has a different keyboard shortcut, which is probably H. But in Windows, you can just hold the spacebar and it allows you to sort of quickly do that. I find it super useful. I explained what the stroke color is and the fill bucket color is, and then these settings down here, a couple of them to really take notice of. Each one with the fill bucket tool, you can change the gap size to what you fill in, which we've already covered. And then with the pencil tool, I like to change pencil mode to smooth. When it's straighten, it becomes rather jagged, and it's supposed to come out that way, but my favorite personal setting on the pencil tool is smooth. And then you can adjust, let me bring this down, the smoothing here to 0 to 100, so you don't see too much of a difference, but I keep it just at 50, so, and I have no problem with it at a 50. And then I have one last tool I almost forgot because it's a brand new tool. It's called the width tool. And I'm going to go ahead and select the width tool. And this only works on stroke color or stroke lines using the pencil, line tool, shape tools, or pen tool. So I'm going to it will not work with the brush tool. So I'm going to go ahead and just click and drag, and you'll notice the shape just becoming extremely large. I don't want it to intersect too much, so I'm going to go ahead and just make it a little bit thicker, and you'll notice that line that I just took so elegantly and easily. I'm going to thin it out this time, and I can just really easily make these lines thicker or thinner, which is a super awesome feature as well. So those are two of the new tools that we covered, are the paintbrush tool in the previous video, and then the next new tool is the width tool. So that covers all of the tools in Adobe Animate. If you have any questions, inbox me, and thanks for watching.